The wind howled outside, shaking the walls of the wooden cabin. Snowflakes flew like tiny knives in the dark night. Inside, the fire burned low, casting long shadows on the floor. Eric sat on a broken chair, sipping lukewarm tea and listening to the storm outside. He lived alone on this frozen planet, far from any colony, far from war, far from people. That's how he liked it. Then, suddenly there was a knock. It was soft at first. Almost nothing. He thought it might be the wind. But then came another slow, careful, almost like someone was afraid. Eric stood up, his hand moving to the old blaster on his belt. No one should be out here. No one should even know this place exists. He moved to the door. The knock came again. When he opened it, the cold hit his face like a slap. But what he saw froze him more than the storm. A woman stood there holding a small bundle close to her chest. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing in the snow. Her dark eyes were wide with fear, and her lips trembled. She didn't speak. She just held the child tighter. The child made a weak sound, a tiny whimper, like a kitten too tired to cry. Eric looked at both of them. They were soaked, shivering, and barefoot. The woman didn't ask to come in. Hey. She only lowered her head and said, "Just feed my daughter. Human eye won't speak. I won't complain. I'll sleep where you say." She was trying to stay strong, but her knees were shaking. The child wasn't moving anymore. Eric stepped aside without a word. She rushed in, still holding the child. He shut the door behind her and threw another log into the fire. "Sit there," he said, pointing to a soft mat near the flames. She obeyed instantly, like a servant used to commands. He brought out a blanket and wrapped it around the child. The girl was very small, maybe 4 years old. Her skin was lighter than the woman's, and her cheeks were hollow. Eric handed her a cup of warm soup, but she didn't drink. Her tiny fingers reached toward her mother. "She won't eat unless she sees me." The woman whispered, her voice cracked like dry stone. He gave another cup to the mother. "Then you drink too." She looked at the cup as if it was gold. She took one small sip and gave the rest to the child. "You haven't eaten?" he asked. The woman shook her head. "Not in 2 days." He made more soup. They sat in silence. Near the fire, the child slowly drank and then fell asleep in her mother's lap. "What's your name?" Eric asked. The woman didn't answer. She only stared into the fire. "I'm not here to hurt you," he added. She hesitated, then said, "My name is Jayla." "Jayla," he repeated, trying to say it right. "Don't ask where we came from," she said quickly. "Please, just a velt. Let her sleep." Eric noticed the way she looked at the door every few minutes, like she was expecting someone to break in. "Are you being chased?" he asked. Jayla hugged the child tighter but didn't answer. Eric stood and went to get clean. "Clothes, she can't sleep in wet fabric. Change her into this." Jayla nodded and carefully removed the child's soaked rags. As she did, Eric saw something glowing on the child's back. It was a marca symbol, faint but clear. He recognized it. A royal sigil. A mark of bloodline from one of the noble houses of the Tsarn Empire. The same empire that fell during the last galactic war. Eric's face went cold. "She's important, isn't she?" he asked. Jayla's eyes widened. Her lip trembled. "I won't tell anyone," he said. "But you have to be honest. If you stay here, I need to know what I'm hiding." Jayla looked at her daughter, then at him. "She's the last of her kind," she whispered. "They will kill her if they find her." "And me too." Eric didn't move. He didn't blink, just nodded. "Then you stay here," he said. "Until she's strong enough to run again, or until I'm strong enough to protect you." Jayla stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, she lowered her head, not in fear, but in relief. The fire cracked. The snow outside kept falling. But inside that cabin, something warm had begun, and none of them knew. The real danger hadn't even arrived yet. The fire flickered gently as the little alien girl lay wrapped in the human spare blanket. She looked fragile, bones too sharp, skin too pale, breath too slow. Jayla sat beside her, never blinking, never speaking unless asked. Eric adjust. finished boiling another pot of broth. The scent filled the room with warmth, but when he offered it to the child, her eyes stayed shut. Her small hands clutched the edge of her mother's dress. "She needs to eat," Eric said quietly. Jayla shook her head. "She won't open her mouth unless I do first." "You mean she copies you?" "No," Jayla whispered, brushing the girl's silver hair gently. "She only eats when she knows I'll be there when she wakes up. If I leave her side, she'll thinks I'm gone forever." Eric said nothing. He turned and poured the hot soup into a bowl. Then he placed one bowl in front of Jayla and another in front of the girl. Jayla hesitated. Her hands trembled again. "You need food too," he said. "I told you," she whispered. "I didn't come for myself." Eric sat across from her, resting his elbows on the table. His eyes were sharp but not cold. "If you pass out from hunger, she'll lose everything anyway, so eat." Jayla picked up the spoon. The child's eyes fluttered open the moment her mother took a bite. Slowly, the girl reached out and picked up her own spoon with both hands, dipping it clumsily into the bowl. She slurped quietly, never taking her eyes off her mother. Eric leaned back, watching the two. They looked strange together, blue skin, dark hair, eyes glowing faintly in the firelight, but also familiar. He had seen that look before, in war camps, in refugee shelters, in the eyes of people who lost everything except each other. After a few minutes, the girl fell asleep again, her stomach finally full. Jayla pushed away her bowl. "Thank you," she said. Eric nodded. "You didn't ask who I was," she added. "Most men do." "Didn't need to," he replied. "I saw what matters." Jayla looked confused. "And what did you see?" "A mother willing to die cold and starving just so her child could live." Silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't heavy. Later that night, Eric prepared the guest bed. He placed extra blankets, tucked in a heating pad, and laid out a fresh tunic for Jayla. She watched him carefully, standing near the fire with the child still in her arms. "The bed's ready," he said. "You should sleep, both of you." Jayla stepped forward but didn't lay down. She placed the child on the soft mattress, then sat on the floor next to her. "Back against the wall? You can take the bed too," Eric told her. "No," she said quickly. "She might wake up. She needs to see me. She doesn't, cry. She's safe now." "No one is ever safe, human," Jayla said, her voice low and tired. Eric didn't argue. He simply nodded and sat across the room, polishing a small plasma tool. He glanced at the girl again. She stirred in her sleep, her tiny hands searching for her mother's fingers. "She calls herself Mira," Jayla said suddenly. Eric looked up. "Her name?" "Yes," Jayla replied. "It means light in our tongue." "A good name," he said. Jayla brushed the child's hair softly. "She doesn't remember her father. She was just a baby when he died." Eric's voice dropped. "How he gave up his life so we could escape the palace." That word palace hit him hard. He remembered the symbol on the child's back. "She's not just any child," Eric said. Jayla nodded slowly. "They killed all of House Valletta. She's the last one left." "No, I was her nursemaid, but when the queen died, I became her only protector, her only family. And now she's here," Eric said. "On my doorstep." Jayla finally looked up. Her eyes were sharp, but tears glimmered under the surface. "I had nowhere else to go," she said. "But if you want us gone, if this is too dangerous, I'll carry her and leave tonight." Eric stood. He walked over to the fire, stirring it with a steel rod. Sparks danced upward into the chimney. "You're not going anywhere," he said. "If they come looking, they'll have to deal with me." Jayla's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. "You don't understand," she whispered. "No," Eric said, his voice steady. "You don't understand. No child should go hungry in front of me. I don't care if she's royal or forgotten." The fire crackled louder. Jayla lowered her eyes again. Then, very softly, she said, "I'll clean, I'll cook, I'll stay. In your bed if I must. Just let her stay." Eric walked to the door and locked it tight, turned back to Jayla. "You can stay without offering anything," he said. "No deals. Just rest." Jayla looked at Iman for the first time since she arrived. Her face showed something new. Hope. The storm had passed by morning, but the sky stayed dark with thick gray clouds. Eric stepped outside just long enough to gather snow, and a metal pail melted. It would be their water for the day. When he returned, he saw something strange. Jayla was kneeling beside the child, whispering a chant in a language he didn't know. Her hands moved slowly over Mira's chest, tracing gentle patterns that glowed faintly, like golden vines beneath her skin. The child didn't wake only, breathed deeper, as if the warmth of her mother's touch was healing her soul. When Jayla looked up and saw Eric watching, her hands froze. "You saw nothing," she said quickly, her voice sharper than before. "Saw something," he replied. "I've seen enough in this galaxy to know it wasn't dark magic." "It wasn't magic," Jayla said, standing. "It's part of her blood." She wrapped the child gently in the blanket and carried her to the warmer side of the room. Then she turned to Eric and said something she hadn't said since arriving. "It's time you knew the truth." Eric crossed his arms, listening. "Her name isn't Mira," Jayla began. "Not truly. Her full name is Mira Valletta Din Sarithlas, heir of the Valletta line, daughter of Queen Elavari and the fallen Emperor Ciro." Eric didn't speak. He didn't even breathe. "She is the last blood-born heir to the old empire," Jayla continued. "Every remaining loyalist wants her hidden. Every enemy wants her dead." Eric stared at the floor, jaw tight. "You brought her here to my cabin with that name and that blood? Do you realize what that means?" "I had no choice," she answered. "We were betrayed. They burned the last safe house 2 moons ago. Everyone who protected her is gone, except me." Eric turned, pacing now. "You should have told me. If I had, would you still have let us in?" she asked. He looked at her hand. That look was enough. She knew the answer. "I would have fed her anyway," Eric said finally. "But I would have set a few more traps around the perimeter." Jayla stepped forward. "You think it's only soldiers we must fear?" Eric raised a brow. "You're telling me there's more?" Jayla took a breath. The mark on her back, it's not just a bloodline sigil. It's a beacon. When she was born, it was sealed into her skin by the High Priestess. Every month, it glows brighter. Anyone with the right scanner can track it. Eric's stomach dropped. "You mean they can find her?" "Yes," Jayla said. "And if she ever gets scared, really scared, shines like a flare?" Eric turned to look at the child. So small, so still. But now in his eyes, she looked like a glowing target with a bullseye on her back. "Why would they do that to a child?" he asked. "To protect her," they said. Jayla replied bitterly. "But now it's the very thing putting her in danger." Eric rubbed his face. "You said you were just her nursemaid." "I was," Jayla said. "But when the queen died, I was the only one left who knew the escape tunnels under the palace. I carried Mira through fire, through smoke, through bodies. I didn't stop even when my legs gave out." Eric stared at her for a long moment. Her voice didn't tremble anymore. There was steel behind every word now. "I believe you," he said, "and that makes this cabin a war zone." Jayla nodded. "You can still send us away. You'll be safer." Eric shook his head. "I've been in real war zones. This is a family trying to survive. I'm not going to throw that away." She looked at him differently now, not with fear. It's not even with caution, but with something close to respect. He stepped toward a wall panel and opened a hidden hatch. Inside were 2 old scanners, a stack of metal discs, and 1 small crate covered in dust. "What's that?" Jayla asked. "Military-grade signal dampeners," Eric said, pulling one out, stolen from a downed Dominion ship during the Blackstone campaign. "They were meant for shielding command cores, but we're going to use them for something far more precious." He held one out to her. "Hold her still. I'm going to place this over the mark." Jayla obeyed, lifting the child's shirt and exposing the faint golden glow. Eric placed the disc carefully over it and pressed a button. A soft hum filled the room then. Silence. The glow disappeared. Jayla gasped. "It's gone," Eric nodded. "Not forever. But while the disc holds, no one will track her." "Out, she Be just another face in the snow. Jayla looked at him, then at Mira, then back at him. I thought you were just a man with a cabin, she said quietly. I am, Eric replied. But I've seen enough empires rise and fall to know when something is worth protecting. She held Mira close, kissed her forehead, and said, she just needs peace. Eric looked out the window at the snow-covered world. She'll have it, he said, as long as I'm breathing. Eric woke in the middle of the night. Something felt wrong, not loud, not dangerous, just wrong. The fire was still glowing, the wind outside still howling against the cabin walls. But something in the air had changed. He looked over toward the guest bed. The child was sleeping soundly, curled under thick blankets. But Jayla was gone. He stood, grabbed his coat, and scanned the room. Then he saw her. She was sitting against the door, knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around them. Her head was resting against the wood, eyes wide open, watching. The shadows outside through the tiny crack near the doorframe. What are you doing there? He asked softly. She didn't answer right away. I'm keeping watch, she said finally. You don't need to. The place is secure. I can't sleep in beds anymore, she whispered. Not while she's still in danger. Eric walked over and crouched beside her. She's not in danger here, he said. Jayla turned to him. Her eyes looked older. Than before, tired, worn, shaped by too many nights just like this one. You say that? She said. But I've said the same thing before. I thought she was safe in the last house, the one before this. Before the fire, before the screaming. She looked away. She screamed for me while the walls fell. I couldn't reach her. I couldn't hear her voice over the sound of soldiers tearing down the doors. Eric sat beside her on the floor. He didn't speak. He just listened. Jayla continued, her voice shaking now. I swore I'd never let her sleep alone again. If I must sleep, I'll sleep on the ground near the door, like a dog.
Oh.
Just let her live. Eric turned to face her. You're not a dog, he said. You're a mother who's done everything right. Jayla looked at him with a strange expression, like she didn't know how to take kindness anymore. You gave her food, she said. And now you offer me warmth, a bed, protection. What do you want in return? Eric raised an eyebrow. Nothing. She didn't believe it. Not fully. That's not how it works in the Empire, she said. No one helps without expecting something back, especially not men, especially not when it's a woman in a bed involved. Eric stood and crossed his arms. Well, I'm not from the Empire. She looked up at him. I'll clean your house, she said. I'll wash your clothes. I'll cook every meal. I'll stay quiet when you speak. Just let her stay. He sighed, walked to the table, and pulled a chair closer to the fire. Jayla, listen to me, he said. I don't want your silence. I don't want your cooking. I don't even need your help. What I want is for you to stop shaking. You and the little one, you've been through hell. I'm just giving you a place to rest. She stared at him. Still sitting on the floor? Why? She asked. Eric looked at the fire, eyes reflecting the flames. Because once, someone did the same for me. Jayla waited. I was injured in the Delta Uprising, he continued. Enemy forces were closing in. My own squad left me behind. Bleeding, broken, forgotten. I crawled to a small hut and passed out. He looked over at her. I woke up in the arms of a woman with red eyes and 6 arms. She gave me food, gave me a place to heal. Never asked why I was fighting, never asked what I could give her. When I was strong enough, I left, but I never forgot her. He walked back over and held out a hand. I made a promise that day. If I ever saw someone in that same pain, I'd do the same. No questions, no price. Jayla didn't take his hand. Instead, she looked toward her daughter. Mira shifted slightly in her sleep, a soft sigh escaping her lips. Jayla stood on her, owned slowly, and walked back to the bed. She didn't climb under the covers. She lay next to the child on top of the blankets. One hand touching Mira's cheek, Eric stood in silence. Then she spoke again. I've never trusted a human before, she said, but maybe you're not like the others. I'm not, he said quietly. She pulled the blanket over the child. If anything happens to her, I'll die before I let them take her. Eric walked toward the door and opened a panel in the wall. Inside was a rack of small plasma charges and a control pad. Nothing's going to happen to her, he said, because they'll have to get through me first. Jayla smiled just barely, and for the first time, her head rested on the pillow, not the floor. The next morning felt too quiet. The snow had stopped falling, but the air was colder than before. Even the trees outside stood still, as if holding their breath. Eric stood near the window, eyes scanning the forest that surrounded his cabin. His old military scanner sat on the table, humming quietly, searching the area for movement. It had been silent for weeks, until now. Beep, just once, then silence. Eric's fingers moved fast. He reset the scanner. The machine blinked, recalculated, then confirmed an energy signal. Not a creature, not a storm, a ship. He didn't panic. He didn't call Jayla. He just reached for the rifle he kept hidden under the floorboards. Outside, a low vibration stirred. The snow. The sound was too far for the child to hear, but Eric knew it too well. It was the soft hum of repulsor lift engines. They were slowing. He walked toward Jayla, who was folding old cloth near the fire. "You need to go downstairs," he said. She froze. "What is it?" "A ship landed west of here," he replied. "Not local. Not from any human colony either." Ella grabbed her daughter. Myra was still half asleep, mumbling about soup and stars. Jayla pressed the child to her chest. "They've found us," she whispered. "Not yet," Eric said. "But they're looking." He led her to a trap door behind the storage shelves. Underneath was a narrow space, reinforced with old supply crates and hidden with thermal shielding. It had food, water, and one emergency line that led deep into the woods. "If I tell you to run, you take her and go. Follow the orange markers. They'll lead you to an abandoned signal tower. From there, I'll contact you." Jayla didn't move. "And what about you?" "I stay here," he said. "I talk to them. They'll kill you if they know you're hiding her." Eric looked at Mira. The child had fallen asleep again in her mother's arms. "I won't let them near her," he said. "Now go." Jayla climbed down without another word. Eric sealed the trapdoor and moved the shelf back in place. By the time the knock came, he was already at the door. It wasn't soft like Jayla's had been. It was loud, sharp, and full of authority. Eric opened. The door slowly to alien men stood outside. One was tall and armored in black plating with a red visor over his face. The other wore a long silver coat and held a data tablet in his gloved hand. "Human," the tall one said. "We are tracking a fugitive." Eric kept his expression neutral. "Out this far?" "It's unusual," the second alien replied. Not impossible. Our scanners picked up a royal beacon last cycle. It was brief, but strong." "I've got nothing royal here," Eric said. "We'd like to look around." The soldier said, stepping forward. Eric didn't move. "You got a warrant?" The alien tilted his head. "We don't need one." "You do on this land," Eric said firmly. "Old treaties still apply." The man in the silver coat narrowed his eyes. "You live alone?" Eric nodded. "Strange. No colony for kilometers, no trade lines nearby." "I like quiet," Eric said, "and I don't like strangers with questions." The soldier stepped forward again. "We will check the house." Eric's fingers twitched. The rifle hung behind. "The door ready." "House is locked," Eric said.
"Oh man."
"No one goes in unless I say." The tall alien reached for his weapon. That's when Eric moved. With one quick motion, he shoved the door into the soldier's chest, knocking him back, pulled his rifle and pointed it at the second man's head. "I said," Eric growled, "you're not welcome." The alien in the coat raised his hands. "Easy," he said. "We don't want to fight." "Then walk away," Eric said. "There's no child here. You're chasing a ghost." The soldier recovered, standing tall again, visor cracked. "You'll regret this, human," he spat. Eric smirked. "I've regretted worse." Without another word, the two turned and walked back through the trees. Eric waited until they were out of sight. Then he locked the door, reset the scanner, pulled the shelf away. Jayla climbed out, Mira still pressed against her shoulder. You stopped them? She asked. For now, he said. Jayla stood in silence, her hand shaking. They'll come back, she whispered. Next time with more men. Eric didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at the corner of the room where an old crate sat untouched. He pulled it open, revealing a folded set of black armor and an old soldier's badge with a red mark. I wasn't always just a man with a cabin, he said. If they want to fight, they'll get one. Jayla stared at the armor. Then Him, who are you? She asked. Eric looked her in the eye. The last man they should have knocked on, he said. The cabin smelled of smoke. Not from the fireplace. This was a different kind of fire. This was scorched earth, burnt metal, broken armor. A trail of heat led from the woods to the cabin door, ending in blood-stained snow and black boot prints. Eric leaned against the wall, breathing heavy, one hand pressed against a cut near his ribs. His coat was torn, his knuckles were bruised. His eyes, still sharp, still burning, stared down at the motionless body on the floor. One of the men had returned, alone. This time, maybe he thought the human was bluffing. He wasn't. Jayla stepped. Out from the hidden passage, Mira wrapped tightly in her arms. She froze the moment she saw the body. Her grip on the child tightened. You fought him, she whispered. Eric nodded slowly, then winced. He didn't give me a choice. She lowered Mira gently onto the blankets, then ran to Eric. Her fingers trembled as she lifted his shirt and saw the wound. It's deep, she said. You need stitching. I've had worse, he muttered. Jayla turned to the shelf and grabbed a clean cloth. She began wiping the blood, her hands moving fast, as if trying to erase what happened. You shouldn't have done this, she said. You should have let me run. Eric grabbed her wrist knot hard, just enough to make her stop. I told you, he said. If they want her, they'll have to take me first. Jayla looked at him, her lips parted but no words came. He released her wrist. You still don't trust me, do you? Her shoulders fell. I want to, she said, but I've seen men offer help before. Oh, and later, demand payment. Eric sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the side. What if I don't want payment? Then why are you doing this? She asked. You risked your life for someone you barely know. He looked at Mira. The child was asleep again. Her fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. I've seen enough children die in this galaxy, he said. I swore I wouldn't let it happen again, not if I could stop it. Jayla sat beside him now, patching the wound with quiet hands. You fight like a soldier, she said, but you speak like a father. Eric's eyes softened. Neither, not anymore. She didn't push him. Instead, she said, You shouldn't have been alone in this cabin. He gave a small smile. Maybe I was waiting. For what? For someone worth saving. Didn't smile, but her silence was different now. She tied the last knot in the cloth and leaned back. You need rest, she said. I'll rest when she's safe. He answered. Jayla looked at the child, her little chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. She's all I have left, she said softly. Her laughter, her tears, her breath, it's my reason to keep breathing too. Eric nodded. Then we protect that breath. Together. Jayla blinked quickly, then stood and walked to the window. More will come, she said. Next time. Not alone. They'll bring scanners, hunters, machines. Rick reached for a small device on the table and flicked it open. Soft green light blinked from the surface. Already sent out a jamming signal, he said. No scans will work within a 10-kilometer radius. I've activated the outer mines. Jayla turned to him, surprised. You were ready for this? I knew the moment I saw the mark on her back, he said. They weren't going to stop. He slowly stood, moving to check the locks, reinforcing the front window with metal sheets. Then what happens now? She asked. We make this place a fortress, he said. No one gets close without us knowing. Jayla hesitated. And after that? Eric looked at her, not at her hands, not at her face, but into her eyes. You trust me, he said. That's what happens next. Jayla lowered her gaze. I'm trying, she said, but it's hard. Eric stepped closer. Then let me prove it again. Every hour, Every day. Until you don't need to ask if I'll stay. Jayla slowly nodded. She reached down and took his hand. It was calloused, warm, and scarred. Her fingers rested there, not out of fear but choice. We'll cook tomorrow, she said quietly. Eric smiled. Then I'll eat it, and I'll clean. I'll make more mess, he replied, and I'll stay, she added, as long as she's breathing. Eric looked at the child, then at Jayla. Then I'll keep her breathing. Outside. Snow began to fall again, but inside the cabin, for the first time. Warmth came not just from the fire but from two souls who had started to believe they weren't alone anymore. The snow had melted. Not all of it, but enough that the tops of the trees began to show again. The cold air had softened. The sky, once dark and heavy, now held a soft light, the kind that feels like a promise. Inside the cabin, something had changed to laughter, real, bright. Childlike laughter. Myra was spinning in slow circles across the wooden floor, chasing a handmade wind chime Eric had built from scrap metal and thread. Her small feet thumped with energy. Her cheeks were full now, her hair tied in two playful loops. She looked like a child again, not a fugitive, not a royal heir, just a happy little girl. Eric sat nearby, tightening a wire around one of the outside traps. His hands moved carefully, but his eyes stayed fixed on her. Jayla stood by the window, watching the trees. Not with fear anymore, but caution, shaped by habit. Her hands were no longer trembling. Her back stood straight. Her voice had gained strength. But today, she wasn't watching for danger. She was watching him. He didn't notice. Maybe he pretended not to. When Mira tripped and fell, Eric was already there, lifting her up before she could cry. "You all right, little star?" he asked. Mira giggled. "I'm a star now," he nodded, "brighter than any I've seen." She wrapped her arms around his neck and held on tight. Jayla turned away from the window and smiled. Later that evening, the fire was crackling softly, casting warm light over the cabin walls. Gayla stirred a pot on the stove, humming quietly. In her native tongue, Eric cleaned a small knife, sharpening it even though it didn't need it. Mira sat cross-legged on the rug, her voice suddenly soft. "Can I ask something?" Eric glanced at her. "Always. If I call you something, would it be okay?" He lowered the knife. "Depends. What is it?" She turned her face toward him, eyes big and hopeful. "Can I call you Papa?" The word froze the room. Jayla dropped the spoon into the pot. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Eric didn't move right away. Mira looked nervous now. I don't remember my real Papa, but you take care of me, you protect me, and you make me laugh. So, maybe I can call you that?" Eric set the knife down gently. He walked over, kneeled beside her, took her small hands in his. "I would be honored," he said. Mira beamed. Then she leaned forward and hugged him tightly. Behind them, Jayla stepped closer. Her voice was shaky, but full of something more than relief. "She's never said that before," she whispered. "Not to anyone." Eric stood slowly, facing her. "I'm not trying to replace what she lost," he said. Gayla shook her head. "You didn't replace it. You gave it back." She moved closer, standing just inches away. "You were never meant to be part of our story," she said. "But now I can't imagine it without you." Eric looked into her eyes, the firelight dancing across her features. "Then let's write a new one," he said. "All three of us." Jayla nodded slowly. "I'll stay," she whispered. "Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because this is where I want to be." Eric reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Myra yawned behind them and climbed into the bed without being told. Eric lifted the blanket for her, tucking her in gently. She held his finger until she drifted off to sleep. Jayla stood at the doorframe, watching silently. "You know what this means?" she said. "We're a family now." Eric smiled. "I've faced war, storms, hunger, and betrayal. But this feels like the bravest thing I've ever done." Jayla stepped beside him. "Then be brave with me," she said, "because there's still danger. There always will be. But if you're by my side, I'll never run again." He looked at her, then at the child. "I'm not just by your side," he said. I'm with you. Always. They stood there, both of them quiet, both of them whole for the first time in years. Outside, the sky cleared completely. Stars returned clear, beautiful and bright, inside the cabin. A new life had begun. Not because they asked for it, but because they chose it, together.